What is the deal with the monkey in the Monkey D. Luffy? Why has Oda used that name for several protagonists of several failed manga series before One Piece? And why is everyone who is named Monkey, or who literally is a monkey, in this series given a special power that no other character possesses? What is the monkey to this monk mystery? Well, to begin, a while ago, I stumbled upon a fantastic question on the internet which went as follows. How come everybody in One Piece is referred to by their last name? So if you're not familiar with Japanese culture, Luffy's name is probably quite a bombardment of bizarre. But in Japanese culture, the family name comes before the given name, which is why he's Monkey D. Luffy instead of Luffy D. Monkey. However, I do recognize that this gets a little bit confusing because certain anime or manga, not to name any names, but do use the English order, like say Uzumaki Naruto, for example, instead of Naruto Uzumaki. Again, we're not naming names of any particular series, but that's how the English translation gets a bit inconsistent. Not that having Monkey as your family name somehow makes it make more sense, but this is a long-standing tradition of author Eiichiro Oda that well predates One Piece. Oda's monkey obsession dates at least all the way back to 1994, 3 years before the series that would become known as One Piece was published. This was one of Oda's many attempts to start a serialized manga in Weekly Shonen Jump, and it was called Forward. And it featured a protagonist named Monkey D. Powell, a woodcutter with 2 powers, which were to stretch and to fall asleep. Some other notable features about Monkey D. Powell include the pattern on his bandana, which would go on to be used as the pattern of the Gomu Gomu no Mi, as well as Powell's mentor, 5,008-year-old rubber tree spirit named Mary, as well as a thief named Liesel, one of approximately 20-something prototype Namis that Oda churned through before landing on Nami herself. That's not a joke, by the way. If you go through all of Oda's serialization attempts, and there are 20 plus of them, the vast majority of them contain a character who looks exactly like Nami. Nami has quite a rich heritage and wildly expansive family tree of characteristics that led to her creation, as do all of you. Which is why this video is sponsored by MyHeritage, the #1 family history service used by 90 million people to research and construct their family trees with over 20 billion easily searchable results. I'm gonna be completely honest here, I was skeptical of MyHeritage because my family keep pretty meticulous historical records, and I just didn't think that MyHeritage could show me something that I didn't already know. And I was very wrong. Primarily due to the smart match option, which matches your relatives to those in trees built by other users, which is how I found this photo of my great-grandfather who was an Anzac in World War I. And not only that, but MyHeritage can enhance, repair, colorize, and even animate these ancient family photos to provide a clearer glimpse into history than any human society has ever had. But the thing that shocked me the most is that I actually found a new relative, my direct ancestor from 6 generations ago in good old Scotland, and it was his daughter who made the absurdly long trip from Scotland to Australia in the early 1800s, who then went on to give birth to my great-great-grandfather. And I also found a ton of other cool stuff, like newspaper articles whenever my ancestors did noteworthy things for society, and mostly obituaries, so those noteworthy things were all dying. And also my great-great-great-grandfather was once arrested for stealing a horse. In fact, that's genuinely how he ended up in Australia. He got shipped off because Scotland got sick of his crap. So I highly recommend giving MyHeritage a go, and you can sign up for a 14-day free trial by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen. And I hope that you have all of the fun discovering your own personal void centuries worth of family history. Definitely give it a go. Cannot recommend it enough. But for now, it's back to you, me. But even in 1994, Oda had a vision for a character named Monkey and insisted on carrying this name over many failed series until it finally stuck with One Piece. And to even begin to explain this obsession with monkeys, we need to note that Eiichiro Oda was heavily inspired by Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball, which I personally find very funny because the infamous editor of Dragon Ball, Kazuhiko Torishima, has never liked One Piece and considered it, quote, trash from day one, adding another quote, manga that doesn't sell well is just trash for the editors to deal with. And to this day, he still takes shots at One Piece every now and then in public interviews. He's a very bitter man. But the greater point of this is to say that Monkey D. Luffy was, of course, partially inspired by Son Goku. And Son Goku is the Japanese translation of the Chinese name Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, and central figure of Journey to the West, an adventure designed to be both a humorous satire of Chinese bureaucracy as well as a source of spiritual insight. And in fact, Akira Toriyama was originally going to make Goku an actual monkey and go full equals Sun Wukong. And this is where it starts to become clear that the name Monkey isn't just something Oda thought would be, a bit of wacky fun, monkeys. Because the tale of a monkey wanting to become a king is a very familiar one. In fact, Sun Wukong became Monkey King through some very interesting means. He and the other monkeys in the place that they were in stated that whoever went through the waterfall and found the source of the stream, as well as returned to tell the tale, would be crowned as the gloriousome Monkey King, which Sun Wukong did, and that is more or less the entire premise of One Piece, as well as the mechanism by which one gets crowned Pirate King, just on a much larger scale. You need to be the first pirate to find the hidden island, as well as return, and then bam, congrats on your new Pirate King title, my lord. In addition to that premise, Luffy strongly parallels Sun Wukong himself. Both Sun Wukong and Luffy directly rebel against the heavens. In Luffy's case, he has been both literally and consistently thematically identified as the enemy of the gods of the One Piece world. Many, if not all of whom, are false gods, such as the world nobles, who themselves are an over-the-top satirical take of real-world bureaucracy, just like the gods of Journey to the West, but a bit more modernized and a bit more chunksome. Luffy and Sun Wukong are also both referred to as demons in their respective texts. In fact, in One Piece, anyone with the will of D is considered to be a demon by the world nobles and an enemy of the gods. Although I should note that there is some extremely important nuance that gets lost in translation. The brand of demon that Sun Wukong represents is known as a Yaoguai, which isn't a demon as we would understand them in the West. In English especially, the term demon is conflated with the concept of evil. It's very difficult to divorce evil from the idea of demons, but that's exactly what a Yaoguai is. You could more accurately describe them as monsters with special powers, sort of like what devil fruit users are in the One Piece world, yes? Not necessarily inherently good or evil, however, they are usually portrayed in an antagonistic light. And to be fair, it's usually well deserved. Those Yaoguai made their a menace. And most devil fruit users in One Piece do mirror this and fall on the more villainous side of the spectrum. Again, just like the Yaoguai. And an example of this is this moment depicting the seduction of Tan San Zhang, an image that I love just because of how threateningly this hand looms over his crotch, waiting to strike those unassuming balls. And just in case this isn't apparent yet, the name Sun Wukong contains the word sun, and instead of being the Monkey King in One Piece, Luffy has inherited the powers of the sun god. The inspiration, it's pretty clear. What's less clear is what Oda has been doing with the concept of monkeys in One Piece in general, because this goes over a lot of people's heads, but whenever a monkey appears, you should be paying very close attention. Surprisingly, they don't appear all that often. And when they do, Luffy, he has an innate affinity for monkeys, and again, there's good reason for this. This is something that gets a bit lost in the Viz translation, but for example, when Luffy first meets Masura, the ape-like human during the Gyro arc, the very first thing that Luffy says is, "Hey, a monkey." To which Masura replies, "Huh? You think I'm hunky?" As if he misheard a compliment, and yeah, it's funny English word stuff, but what actually happened gets lost in translation. What Masura is actually saying can be translated more accurately as, "Huh? You think I'm monkeyful?" He says monkeyful, which is a bit of a tricky concept to explain. But basically, Masura is happy that someone is equating him so closely to a monkey, like telling someone that they're beautiful. The implication is that you think that their looks are like real good. And in this case, Masura thinks that his monkey likeness is really good. And don't worry if you don't quite get this conversation, because neither do Zoro or Sanji. And later on, they state that Luffy only really understood what was happening because, and I quote, "they're both monkeys." And the same thing happens with another member of the Saruyama Alliance. Saruyama literally meaning Monkey Mountain, by the way, which is another possible reference to Sun Wukong, as after rebelling against the heavens, Wukong spent 500 years imprisoned under a mountain, a monkey mountain. But as soon as Masura and Shoujo, the orangutan-like man, meet Luffy and they're all in one location, all three of them instantly click and start getting along. And again, the reason for this is cited as being because all three of them are monkeys. And the very touching thing about Masura and Shoujo in particular is that, as wacky as they are, Mont Blanc Cricket credits them as being the fools who saved him from the loneliness of diving in the cold dark seas. Essentially, they gave Mont Blanc Cricket his own personal Dawn of the World. That is the power of even the most average of monkey in the One Piece world. And most of them are far from average. Monkeys carry very high status in One Piece, and that's not just evident in Luffy. And more often than not, they all share the notion of being extremely close to the gods of the world. Luffy's grandfather, Monkey D. Garp, is a prime example of this. The legendary hero of the Marines who, despite serving the world government, consistently finds ways of avoiding serving the world nobles directly. Sort of like how Sun Wukong was invited into heaven, but then didn't obey anyone and was a bit of a prick. Then you've got prickery on a new level with Luffy's father, Monkey D. Dragon, who, in a much more Wukong-inspired story, is directly conjuring a revolution to overthrow the gods. And outside of Luffy's family, you even have Commander-in-Chief Kong, the highest-ranking human official within the world imperial government who is allowed to live on Marijois, but with the knowledge that he is the lowest ranking being to do so. Again, much like how Wukong was invited to live in heaven, but under the condition that he took care of all of the heavenly steeds, effectively making him a glorified stable boy. And if you look at the more literal monkeys elsewhere in the One Piece world, you find the Humandrils, the insanely powerful natives of Mihawk's Island, or even Monster, who is one of the senior officers of the Red Hair Pirates. Monkeys in One Piece are funny, but they're no joke. Oda doesn't just sprinkle them in as randomly as every other animal. There's a certain reverence to monkeys, and even the lowest ones still carry a hint of Wukong flair. As an example, during the initial Sabaody arc, there's even a team of kidnappers called the Coffee Monkeys, and their leader's design is based on Sun Wukong, which you can tell by the gold headband and the staff, and all of the crew seem to have functioning tails, potentially implying the existence of a monkey man race within the One Piece world. Potentially related to minks, because minks have a fair few monkeys, but these guys, the Coffee Monkeys, are distinctly unminkly. But the thing about Sun Wukong is that while you can see some clear inspiration in parts of his story for Luffy, in terms of his character, they do vary quite radically. Sun Wukong is quite arrogant and even barbaric, with little to no sense of humility, even once going so far as to urinate on Buddha's hand. To be fair, I don't think he knew it was Buddha at the time. Rather like a pillar at the end of the universe, it turned out to be Buddha's hand, you know, in that classic situation. Still, it's not particularly Luffy-like, and there are two explanations for this. The first is that during Sun Wukong's journey, he encounters a singing woodcutter, which I believe is the inspiration for the aforementioned Monkey D. Pao, who himself was a woodcutter, with Oda potentially lifting aspects from both characters and combining them into one: the determination and power of Sun Wukong with the joyous simplicity of the woodcutter. But the second and more mind-blowing explanation comes from chapter 1049. This is the climactic end of the fight battle between Luffy and Kaido, where Luffy uses a new attack called Bajrang Gun, which is a direct reference to Bajrang Bali, also known as Hanuman, a monkey deity of the Hindu pantheon. And Hanuman has a lot more in common with Luffy than Sun Wukong does. For a start, Hanuman's celestial father was Vayu, god of the wind, something that is pretty profoundly reflected in Luffy's father, Dragon, who has been strongly hinted at having a wind ability or wind affinity ever since the early days of Logtown. Furthermore, Hanuman's guru was Surya, the sun god. And then there's this. Hanuman was a very mischievous little child thing, and one morning he woke up feeling extremely hungry, and seeing a big juicy fruit presented in front of him, Hanuman decided to grab it and eat it. However, what Hanuman was trying to grab and eat was in fact the sun, which he had mistaken for basic nourishment. Now this is shockingly similar to how Luffy ate his devil fruit. He was also a very mischievous little child thing, always hungry, and would eat anything that even remotely resembled food, including a devil fruit, an object that traditionally neither looks and especially does not taste appealing. But Luffy's hunger blinded him to both of these, and so he accidentally ate an entire sun god fruit. They both tried to eat fruit that turned out to be a sun. And if Oda had this sun god idea from the beginning, then there is no way that he was unaware of Hanuman. And it should be said that Hanuman was obviously unsuccessful in consuming the sun, because just look outside, it's very nice and bright, unless it's night. But I can't help but wonder if Luffy is Oda's Hanuman fanfic, enacting the situation of, yeah, but what if he did eat the sun? But what else does Luffy have in common with Hanuman? Well, according to scripts, Hanuman was also given the ability to grow bigger or shrink smaller in size, both of which Luffy has now displayed for himself, considering that he can become a giant at will with Gear 5th, and he used to be able to shrink as a result of the after effects of Gear 3rd. What's more interesting is that after playing a prank on an old man praying, a curse was cast on Hanuman, which made him forget all of his powers, effectively meaning that he lost all of the abilities granted to him by the gods. And while Luffy didn't forget, he was definitely unaware of his true capabilities until very recently. Worship of Hanuman is also often sought by those attempting to overcome challenges of illness and poverty. Illness in particular being something that Luffy fights against a lot, because a lot of the nations he finds himself fighting on behalf of are said to be sick. This is a trend that started on Drum Island with Dr. Hirula claiming that Drum was ill, and he was on a quest to cure the hearts of the people, which Luffy ultimately assisted in, and that cycle of country sickness tends to rinse and repeat a lot in One Piece. And then there's poverty. Luffy does that a lot as well. And as for an example of poverty, that is what Wano was all about. Yes, Luffy was fighting because he promised Momonosuke that he would help him, but Luffy's primary driving force was the very first person he met on the island, Tama. He saw her situation of poverty and starvation and made a vow that he would defeat Kaido so that she would be able to eat as much as she wants whenever she wants. But perhaps more importantly, Hanuman is described as quite pure, naive, and innocent, selfless and devoted. And so Luffy is kind of like a combination of Hanuman and Sun Wukong, a greatest hits of the monkey deities, because he has this intriguing mixture of both selflessness and personal desire, which is quite hard to describe. But the name Monkey, it's not just a random choice by Oda, because this name encapsulates the legacy of two cultures, taking aspects of both and creating a brand new monkey-based mythological figure for the global pantheon in the form of the sun god Nika. The name Nika being taken from the Japanese onomatopoeia for grinning or smiling. So that's the monkey part covered, but now we should ask a much more curious question. What does Luffy mean? Aloof without the Y is actually a nautical term, referring to the edge of a fore and aft sail next to the mast or stay. And look, I'm not going to pretend to know what any of those words mean, and neither is Eiichiro Oda. It was assumed for a very long time that this was an intentional choice, given the series' focus on sailing, as well as other names matching that theme like Nami, which is Japanese for wave. However, in One Piece 10th Treasures, Oda revealed that this was purely a coincidence, but one that he was delighted by. Oda has simply claimed that he named Luffy Luffy because it felt right for the main character. But with all due respect, fictional pirate author man, I do not believe you. Given how thoroughly he has thought about the monkey and even the D, mate, Oda loves the D, I would bet that Oda's put a lot of thought into the name Luffy as well. However, if he was to tell us right now, then it would likely be a spoiler for events to come. And thanks so much again to MyHeritage for sponsoring this video, and you can get your free 14-day trial by clicking the link in the description or the QR code on screen.